All signs, this is the Mission and Goals podcast. Radio check over. Hang in there, buddy. We've got you. You're not alone.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good, man.
Michael, welcome to the Mission and Goals podcast.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.
Thanks for jumping on and joining in and sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, that's no promise.
Before we get into who you are, I just wanted to read something to you, and then we want you to get you, if you can elaborate on this. Every time this year, 16 years today, I reflect on what my second life has brought me. Every reflection is different. Reflecting on the past 12 months, I am grateful for. Being able to do and being able to live up to my mantra, battle for life, life is hard. By doing and living up to my beliefs and values, I have overcome physical and psychological challenges, being able to make new friends and raise my children with values similar to mine, where fear is overcome to live a life of purpose and meaning. Through commitment and exposure, I was able to travel overseas with no emotional or psychological reaction. In past years, I have reacted to smells of burning rubbish and odd odors, sights of crowds and heavy traffic, and the sounds of loud noise, including helicopters. My children who all live with me, my children who all live with me to new friends and my friends, and I'll leave the names out of it, who all continue to encourage me and stand up for me in public when comments are made about my appearance or when the public wishes to prejudice towards disabilities. And finally, a wise and beautiful woman calls me strong, stubborn, and motivated, which I see as strengths to help me over my challenges, help others, and to motivate my children. I wish to take this opportunity to encourage all first responders, veterans, serving and non-serving, and people with physical and psychological challenges to commit to self-aid and pursue your dreams for you and then your supports with the support of treating parties. Life is worth living. Children are worth being better for. You wrote that on the 2nd of November, obviously 16 years after something major that happened in your life. Can you tell me, it sounds like your journey has been one of struggle, but one of beauty as well. Are you able to talk to me about your journey and the difficulties that have come along with it?
Look, I don't know where to start. Just listening to you read that actually, hit my core. It got me a bit emotional because there is so much in that to me personally. Luckily, I have my 20-year-old now living with me full time as well, and he was all part of that story. And to me, my journey really started when I made the choice to join the army and chose to be a bomb disposalist. But obviously, during my last mission, things didn't go to plan. And, luckily I had, good friends on the radio, and I have a good mate being my number 2. And as the bomb tech, I was part of the, I was a bomb disposalist, but what they also called WIT, weapon intelligence. And I was trying to gather intel. And when I was trying to gather an IED to exploit it and try to gain intel from it, it actually blew up in front of me, had a tech killer, as they called it. So they had a switch drilled into the side of the T6 mine. So I lost my thumb and index finger, lost my right arm below the elbow, obviously lost my eye, visually impaired in the left. I've got some facial scarrings and other scarrings on my legs. So when we talk about, a second chance, it didn't come to me at once because of all the battles and things I had. But, on the 2nd of November, on Remembrance Day, I should say, it's the day that I landed back into Australia. So when I wrote that post, it was, 16 years later, I actually landed in Australia. I remember weeping and, I was on a Qantas plane. I was upset and all just came so surreal to me. It came to me all at once. I was in tears. I was emotional. They then took me in an ambulance to the PA hospital where, the chief of army and everyone were there, and I couldn't see. I was totally blind, but it was just such a rush of a feeling. It was a feeling that where comforted, but, you'd lost everything. And over a period of time of my own recovery within a month, and that obviously, that month in Brisbane, I chose to get back to Brisbane. I really pursued to get back to Brisbane, regardless of what the doctors were saying and the army wanted me to do. I drove it, and there's a lot of barriers from the defence, and there's a lot of barriers from the civilian world as well, where my wife at the time and I got to choose my goal, and we got to, get to Towns before Christmas. And I was back at work in January, 2 months later, I was back at work. But when I get to tell people, my family, and when we sat down for 6 months, 12 months later, and they were trying to, deal and manage and trying to understand what happened to me during that time, it was really an awakening. And I guess what I mean by that second life aspect, because my family is religious. I was, I went to Catholic school and did all that, but now I have my own perception of what death is. And because I've had that experience, I've got a second life, I can honestly say I felt I was in hell. And to me, hell and heaven is what you make it to be. So it doesn't matter. Christians can say what they like. What I feel, it's about your last lived moments. And because my last lived moments were, fire, and because it was, all that memory playing tricks on you, and there was pain, and there was just so much hurt in it. I remember, hell being literally me being hung over a cliff. I was having these vivid memories or dreams of being hung off a cliff by, this toilet. It was really weird. And there's fire all around me. And when I came to, I went, holy crap, like, where the hell am I? And I was comforted by family and that. So when I say lived experience, every time I look back at it, I felt I was in hell, and I don't want to go back there again. So that's really made me drive myself, along with the mates and that I had still overseas, to pursue a life that I wanted some normality in. And I made a number of choices and careers, and as hard as the choices had to be, I made those choices. So there's a lot to share. Like, I honestly don't know where to go. I'm sure you probably want to ask questions. So
yeah, that's all right. Well, let's start with the mantra, battle for life, life is hard. Where was that born? Where and when was that born?
I think that was born pretty much when I got back to Townsville. So what happened is, when I was in Brisbane, like I said, the 2nd of November, I flew into Brisbane. I had nothing but battles from the PA. I had doctors, I had doctors standing around me telling me what I couldn't do and pretty much what I couldn't do. And I called this meeting. And when I called this meeting, I turned around and said, all right, I need you people to introduce yourself. I don't know who you are. I'm blind. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, this meeting came together. My father was on my right. My wife at the time was on my left. And I said to them, is everyone here? And I went, yep. I said, okay. And I just said, can someone please start, introduce yourself, what you're here for, and try to help me? Anyway, this first doctor stood up and said, yeah, I'm Dr. Let's just say Smith. I'm here for robotics, and I don't think I can help you because you're blind, and at this time, blah, blah, blah. I said, thanks, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, but you can go now. You don't need to be part of my treatment team. See you later. And try to dismiss her. And I didn't hear any movement in that anyway. So I said to my father, I said, has she left? And he said, no. And I went, oh, excuse me, Mr. Smith. Mrs. Smith, she was a female doctor. I said, I asked you to go, you can leave. You don't need to be part of my time. So I really took charge, and there was that type of barrier, people telling me not what to do. Then I had a military telling me that I had to live in a military hospital, and I had to have, nurses or I don't know. I looked at it as kids. I was 30 at the time. I don't need a 20-year-old wiping my ass when I can try to do it myself. I had a wife. So I just had these constant barriers. Couldn't drive. Doctors, media, everyone just at me. Anyway, by the time I got to Townsville, I was just in a depressive, angry, really, not only angry, but I guess there was a bit of grief there as well, that I had lost everything. I wasn't there with my friends. And in January, I think it was around the 16th, I got back to work, and people saying you don't need to be at work. And I couldn't work out. I was just angry all the time. And I was just bitter that I was sick of people telling me not to do things. And I started hearing about things like a neurohack and, mantras and that. And someone said to me, oh, what's your mantra? And I started actually trying to look it up, and I started following, I forget who they were called, but it was a father and son duo. They did triathlons and things like that, but the son had a cerebral palsy, and the father, dragged him along all the time and said, oh, wow, you guys are incredible. So it got me thinking. And I don't know where it really came from, a battle for life, life of heart. It was just me trying every day. And I said, look, that's it, battle for life. I'm the one this is my life. I'm battling it. This is it. And life is hard is what I want to put into it. So regardless of what any person said and whatever my conditions were, by me saying battle for life, it meant that I'm battling for the life that I want. I want this second life. and I'm going to put it into it as much as I can, because life is hard. If you don't put as much as into it, you're not going to get it back. So every time, and it's in my emails, that's what I adhere to. And if I'm down, if I'm low, I try to remember that one, or I come up with another mantra or a neuro hack. And yeah, you know, to me, that it's really personal, and it really got me through a lot of barriers. Like I said, in, you know, the Brisbane PA hospital, at Nogra Barracks, even, you know, comments made to me in Townsville in the early days and so forth. But over time, I think I just got more aware of how people looked at me, and I became more aware of how to better control my emotions. And I didn't call upon it as much, but when I do see it at the end of my emails, it gives me a bit of hope again. It reminds me of the past, which is a good part, because it was a strength in me that I saw that no one else knew and really understood. So yeah.
Because that's something I want to ask about, because it's a beautiful mantra. There's a lot of people who get injured, even not to the extent that you have their own mental, physical injuries and stuff, and they sort of give up on life, like, and they depressed, sit on the couch, like they're just letting life go by. How did you pull yourself? Did you ever have that feeling? And how did you pull yourself? Does that feeling come and go, and you've got to work hard? How do you pull through it? I know your mantra has a lot to do with it, but what's the internal thinking?
Yeah. So one thing but because in the occupation now, I hear this a lot, like with what I do, and people go, I can't understand what you've been through, or, you know, I can't compare myself to you. I don't want people to compare. And the one thing I do say to people, everyone has been through what I've been through. You may not have physically been blown up and lost your arm. You may not have physically, but there's so much emotion, there's so much hurt involved in what I had gone through. Everyone's been through it to a different degree, different level. So you have experience. I live with it every day now. You know, people go through a family breakup, someone goes through a marriage breakup, or they've lost a wife, or they've lost a son, or they've lost a parent, or something has happened, gone really dramatic for them. So there's a lot of thoughts and feelings and, you know, hurt involved in it. Mine is that I'm just constantly reminded about it in the mirror. So when people say, oh, you know, not to the same level, well, it is, you do have the same. So to answer your question, and I think the thing that gets me through, and I guess, do I go through it? Yeah, 100%. You know, back in the day, I was at a point where I was so low, where the Defence Force out of nowhere decided to kick me out, give me no hope, and yep, you're gone. That actually stopped my career. It was confronting, you know, in the military. You know, I was working with CTC, Combat Training Centre. I was doing a bomb vax cell and all this stuff, doing really good, great PARs, doing the Rock Nest Challenge swim. I did that, did really good, came back, done all these courses. I only had one course to go, which was my subject, one warrant officer. Anyway, they marched me or asked me to go and see the CO and RSM. And the CO read out this email, and the email said there's no requirement for Sergeant Lydiard to be promoted or to attend the subject one warrant officer course. And there was no reason for that. There was no reason. About 2-3 months later, I got my marching orders, and yep, see you later. And I was so angry and pissed off, and I actually hit the piss. I got hit it hard. I got hospitalised to the point where we had cop cars come around, because my parents didn't know. My parents were living in Townsville at the time. The Townsville knew who I was, and 2 cop cars, an ambulance, the whole lot. I was pretty out of control. I got admitted to hospital. I pulled myself out, and I guess the thing that pulled myself out was, who the hell were they to tell me that? Who the hell are they again to tell me I'm not worthy to be in the Defence Force? Who are they to tell me that? And trying to remember, you know, all through my second life experience, you know, from being injured, moving to Townsville, oh, you can't swim, or you can't drive, or you can't ride a push bike, or you can't do this. There's something that I gave so much energy into, and something that I put so much of my identity into. And I was good. I thought I was good at my job, and I had some great mates around me, and that it just festered and made me more angry. So I think I was out of hospital in 2 days or something, and I just had a switch and said, fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you assholes wrong. Anyway, I ended up doing all this research and said, yep, I'm going to university. So I got this report, wrote this report, gave it to the CEO and said, all right, if you're going to kick me out, you've got a choice. You can kick me out, or you can follow this, or I go to the media. He goes, I can't promise you anything. I said, well, you got the choice. That's it. You paid my way through uni. Because on that time we were on a 1, 2, 3 mech system. We went on this J51, J or mech 1 to mech 5. Anyway, because of myself and a guy called Liam Haven, that's why the medical system changed. Anyway, so they chose, yep, we'll pay your way through uni, we'll do all that stuff. But then when I went through uni, obviously every day is a challenge. And, when I was going in Townsville, we had doctors turn around. My wife was there. They would say, oh, I deserved what I got. I had a veteran who was driving me to and from home. It was a soldier at the time who was driving me to and home from work and home, who says, why do you go to work? Like, why don't you just live off in your compo? Why don't you just live off DVA? And to me, that wasn't the answer. That wasn't the soldier I was. I didn't join the army for compensation. I in a way, and the brothers and the sisters get this, I love my men. I left my job. But that angered me again, having a soldier saying you should be just living off compo. Like, why put yourself through this stress? So I had all these negative things happen in my life, and civvies staring at me, and you can't swim the magnetic island swim. You'll swim in circles, and then I got to a point when I was at uni where I had heaps of flashbacks because I was outside my comfort zone, and there was choppers. There's so much going on because Afghanistan was still a real heightened period at that time. And I'd gone through a marriage breakup. She was having a good go at me, blaming PTSD, trying to keep the kids away from me. There's a lot of hurt involved into it, and I had to suck it up. But there was a point where I actually sat on top of Mount Stewart, looking down at 3CR, and I'm about to jump 100%. And the only reason I didn't is because at the time I had 2 boys, and literally, there's a rock there. Everyone know, if you climbed up there, there's a rock that literally looks over. You can see, where 25 Squadron was, the whole lot. I was sitting there and I was ready to jump. And I don't know, I just threw it to Kyron. I threw it to Mason and that. But because Kyron had been through so much, I said, yeah, right, this isn't it. I've got to get myself together. I sucked it all back up, remembered the mantra, kept doing my swimming, put everyone's comments behind me, and any derogatory look, because everything hurt. Everything hurt. Now I didn't feel like a veteran. I felt that I was an embarrassment to the military. I thought I was an embarrassment to veterans. I was only tech that got killed or injured in this. And then obviously another tech got injured or killed. But I was the only one wounded, and none of the techs talk to me anymore. And one of them, ended up siding with my ex-wife and all this nonsense, and it just became a real hate.
Do you think you had that feeling specifically about being a tech, is and that's an EOD tech, but because when you were saying that you were the only one who got blown up, is that because you felt like it was a mistake? And that you made the mistake, and then you feel that those techs are judging you, saying you fucked up. Is that what was happening, or is that just in your head? I'm just trying to, because on my healing journey, I thought a lot of people thought a certain thing about me, and then it turns out they didn't. So I'm just trying to understand, because
So what people don't know, the concept of the story, there was an EOD heavy and an EOD light, and because I was so fit, it's probably one of the reasons that I'm still alive, because my heart rate was so low at the time. I carried all the explosives, packs, and everything in my back. We got this job. The point that I'm getting at, there's no way when you're walking, 10 Ks and that with, stomping, clearing with the enemy and clearing caches like we were doing that day, you can't carry a bomb suit. Anyway, people are saying, oh, why didn't you do this? Why you didn't do that? And
the bomb suit's 48 kilos from memory.
Yeah, I could not stand up. I literally had people pulling me up. I had a pack on my back. I had explosives. I had my section around me. No sapper could stand up.
And you're the expert on the ground, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. So anyway, I'm on this site, and I thought I had all the time in the world where I can exploit it. There was no intelligence that came to me saying that there was bomb tech killers or anything like that. So I thought, well, if I can get this device and take it back, who knows? We can get fingerprints. We can do all this cool shit. The good thing is regardless, I made the choice that I made. I didn't wear a bomb suit. I did try to lever it out of the hole. I remember that, but I couldn't. because the ground was so hard. I know my number 2, Warren, said, let's pull it out, but you couldn't. It was just stuck in there because it was like a bit of a creek and there's all the sediments went around it and you couldn't just get it out. So I did another procedure, and that procedure saved my life because I was so pig-headed and determined and trying doing the right thing. I didn't want to injure myself. So I'm sure if I was standing over it, I would have been dead. But because I was so thick-headed and I did my drills and I was laying my guts in the middle of the sun in the heat, taking so long, well, I saved myself. But you're right. It was the fact that, people in the background can sit there and go, he didn't wear a bomb suit. He didn't have a robot. Why didn't he pull it? Why was he manual handling? And all these comments are coming to me. And I'll give you another, I'm not going to name a name, but another confronting thing is we were part of the team and the team came back for Rockall. And I was living in my house with my wife, recovering in Townsville, in and out of work. And one of the teams came back. And let's just say this tech visited me, and this tech turned around and said, what's happened to you is the best thing for EOD. And he said that in front of my wife, and I was gobsmacked. We kicked him out. Like, he didn't get it. I knew why he said it, but when you'd been through the QAs of why and what happened, and then, someone coming in your house saying this is the best thing that happened, because when it happened, EOD did not have the best tools. We did not have the best equipment. We didn't have the best robots. And because of my incident, they got the goggles and they got these new robots and they got PMVs and they got all this stuff, So I get what he said. But for my wife to hear that, she didn't need to. Because I'll take it back. I don't think I kicked him out. I think I said, oh, look, mate, I think it's time for you to go. Because when he left, my wife was really furious and, really upset with it. But it's more the fact that, I was on the ground. I was the expert on the ground. I'd made a number of decisions, that the months before I came back safe and I was doing things right. And I've done plenty of other jobs with IRRR and things like that. But then to be judged by so many people and then not even get a pat on the back or anything like that. But I have heard people go, if that was me, I would have just given up and pulled it and would have died. But, because of you, that's great. But once again, because you questioned over and over again, because trust me, the investigation was huge. You get nothing, and then you hear about all these people that get medals because they did this to you, and they got medals because they did that, and yet you're the one who got left behind and injured, and you've got to live with it. And you see them walking around with an extra medal on their chest because of what they did for you. You go, yeah, right. Look, I'm grateful, but that was your job, like I did my job.
Yep.
But yeah, that was just one aspect, I guess. But, it's challenging. And so, I think it's always come. I think I listened to one of your podcasts or someone else's podcast, and they said you can't move on if you have anger. It's quite funny because, I'm not sure about yourself, but I've been diagnosed and I've got PTSD, MND, or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, obviously an anxiety disorder. And then a number of, other physical conditions more so. My point is that everyone knows what PTSD and, major depressive disorder is. And when you say to someone, oh, you got PTSD, they look at you a bit weird and go, what's happened to you? They think you're the worst. So to answer your question back what it was, how have I learned to move on? It's always been like a neuro hack now. And I did it. I just gradually learned to do it. Like, I got to uni. Uni was the best thing for me, trying to change my mindset, learning to become an occupational therapist, learning about psychology, learning about how the body works, putting yourself in, it ended up being exposure therapy because I didn't like being in people, sitting near people, being new environments. So this exposure just kept building. It was one of the best things. And I didn't know it was part of it. But the point that I'm getting at is, we have these labels, PTSD, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, alcohol misuse. We have all these diagnoses, labels given to us, and I hate it because to me, once again, I do not let my conditions define me. I define my conditions. And the reason I say that is because I will admit I hear some people and the veterans I help, they live up to their conditions. And I get why, and I honestly do. It's hard to move on. But with this condition, there's money associated to it. And some of these memories, and these memories can be hurtful. Some of these memories can be joyful as well, but they don't let go. And that's where that's where I try to change things again. I don't let my labels define me or my conditions define me. I define them, because to me, PTSD is a strength. My PTSD, and trust me, it still bothers me, you know, and we'll get probably back to that. But with my PTSD, you know, it makes me alert. I'm more aware. I know where people are. I'm almost a bit more judgmental. You know, it's not just about that anxiety and feeling crap, but when things go wrong, yeah, I've got that anxiety or think that's sitting there, I'm triggered, but I'm also alert. So I try to scope it around and go, okay, well, with my PTSD, it gets me alert. It keeps me awake, keeps me more hypervigilant. I'm aware of what's going around me. That's a positive. Who cares about the rest of it? So it subsides the rest of that anxiety, and then it subsides the other feelings. When it came to my major depressive disorder, I go, yep, you're fucking right. I am angry. But you know what? People don't bother me. They just let me be. To me, that's a strength. You know, I don't have to put up with idiots. You know, I don't know how many idiots there are there. To me, that's a strength. You know, and then when it comes, you've only got 3 fingers, and, you know, believe me, you know, and we might get to it, but even at Father's Day, my kids had to hear comments from the community in front of me. I have to turn my back behind it, but I go, you know what? But I'm normal. I can accept and move on with life. And you've got 2 hands. I've only got 3 fingers. I'm the one who does everything that you do, but you can make those comments in front of my children, and yet here I am. So, you know, I don't let my conditions define me. I define my conditions, and I'm proud of that. And I think, you know, as part of that first aid, because when we're in the army, you know, and I think unfortunately we've forgotten this, there's always first aid of self-aid before first aid. And, you know, we're in the heat of the battle. You know, there's only one person that's reaching in, you know, to put your own magazine on your weapon, or, you know, if you get shot, there's only one person that can put that, you know, tourniquet on, or put that, you know, pressure bandage on before anyone else, because they're firing their own weapon or doing whatever they're doing. So you got to help yourself before you help anyone. And it's all great to have psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers and OTs and physios doing it, but there is a commitment from the individual, you know.
Yeah, with their tools.
Yeah, mate, you know, you said it, and I did not say it, and I 100% agree with that. Everyone is a tool. Everyone, you know, this is, and I think, like I said, you know, to me, we have our conditions, our labels, but if you can define them and you look at it in the fact that, you know, a psychiatrist there to help me, the psychologist is obviously giving me the interventions, physio is going to make me perform better, but you are just allowing me to enable and achieve what I want. I can tell you to go at any time. You're a tool. You're exactly that. You're a support. The people around me, my friends, are giving me that strength. They're giving me that thing to move on. But everyone else, you know, they're tools. And although they might be tools, or there might be resources and things like that, and I don't really want to use the word tool, but honestly, in, you know, being a combat engineer and things like that, that's what you look at it. You use it, you learn it. Okay, we don't need it. We pick it up when we need it. You know, if you're going to dig a hole, we don't need a shovel. We need a pick. So you get the right tool. You know, loosen it up now. Get a shovel. Okay, now I'm
Right
going to
tool
see
for the job.
Exactly. So unfortunately, you know, it is exactly that. You know, you got to, you know, be self first. You know, look at, you know, a way, I think, you know, who you want to be. And I guess that's what it comes down to too, you know. There's not one thing. There's not one mantra. There's not one neuro hack. It's not one intervention, you know. I've got a lot of friends that are on medication. I've got a lot of friends that did it like me the hard way, and it was a hard way not being medicated. There's a lot of ups and downs and so forth, but it also falls down to knowing who you were and what you were, understanding what your core or your spirituality is. And that's what I mean. You know, I think there was when it probably all originally, and I had to really think about it. And even before I had to come up with that mantra, I had to really think of who I was. And it went as far back as who was I as a kid. You know, yes, I wanted to join the army. I was an outgoing kid. I thought I was a larrikin. I was a smart ass. I was this. Why did I join the army? I saw it because I saw this, you know, Australian soldiers mine sweeping through a creek wearing a slat hat. That gave me hope, and it gave me a value. And then when I was a soldier, I was out running around with my mates. I was a larrikin. I'd just push the boundaries, or I'd do something stupid. And I said, I still want to be that. I still want to be that person. So it made me realize who I was. And although I had these injuries, it made me go, I need to be that person again. And more so, not just for me, I need to show my kids that I have accepted my own consequences from my own fate type thing. You know, I got when Kyron was 4, you know, he's the one that actually answered the door when there was a padre and the CO or OC that, hey, we need to speak to your mum. Is your mum there? And unfortunately, he's the one who still remembers, and it hurts me knowing that he has it. But, you know, I use the kids and myself as an example. I need them to see, hey, my dad is normal. He is this, he's that. But he's accepted it. He joined the army and he accepts the consequences. I can't let them think, you know, as you can imagine, something goes wrong in their life, I'm just going to sit on the couch. I don't want them to have that image of dad, but I want, you know, I've got 3 kids now. I've got a little princess, a little girl who's 7. And I want them to go, you know what? Dad fought a hard life, but he had a good life. And he gave me so much, you know, because when I go out and I help people now, I hear a lot, you know. I just finished a job with a former police officer. And I really feel sorry for her because she's going through hard. She's got 3 kids, you know, PTSD, major depressive disorder, and complex, or what is it, fatigue syndrome type stuff. Can't leave the house and that. And, you know, people like me, I come in and I try to, and we go through everything. I've had 2 hours with her, but now she wants to do more. And that gives me hope, you know. And it goes, yeah, I want you to come back. So now I can go back and try to help her. But these people, I get it. I've been there. At some time, you feel like you can't move on, but you need to find that core value, that spirituality of who you are and why. And like I said to her, it's your kids. Don't you want to see a smile on their face? Don't you want to see them swimming? You know, I remember when I was in the Defence Force as an OT, and I had a client on, and she had 1 child. She was married to a veteran who the veteran was a Timor with Leste, or East Timor 99 20. Anyway, he had PTSD and that, and he would not leave home. And she came to me, she said, I need help. And I said, okay, well, what can I do? You know, you've gone down. I need to come into your home. I want to offer you services. I want to see if we can give you cleaning so you can just focus on your husband. And that goes, no, my husband won't let you in. I said, right, this isn't about your husband. This is about you. You need to talk to your husband and tell him this is for you, because if you don't get the help, you know. So I went in, and believe it or not, I got to speak to both of them, and it helped him as well, you know. So I know it's a long journey, it's a hard journey, and I do get it. And you know, sometimes people look at me and go, oh, wow, you've moved on. And I don't know what shows here on this video, but you know what? I work for a reason. It's called avoidance. You know, I apply every strategy in the book to help me. Mantras, you know, good memories, bad memories, neuro hacks, avoidance behaviors. I do exposure therapy, commitments therapy. I do everything. But the only reason I know all this is because I went to uni, and I've, you know, sat in with some psychologists, and I listened to podcasts, and I listened to people around me, and it's the people that are around me, the good influences, you know. I've got a mate around the corner. He's a doggy. He's in a bad way. I don't know how many times he tried hurting himself, and you know, he wasn't good for me. You know, I moved down to Brisbane, lost everything, moved in a new environment. My PTSD, anxiety's all the way up. He's reaching out to me. I need help. His wife's reaching out to me. And I'm going, oh my God, this isn't good for me. But I couldn't leave him because he's a brother. I couldn't do it. So I'd always go around and put him first. But then I'd come back and take 3 deep breaths, you know, hold it in, count 10 or 5 and exhale. Or then I'd be mindfulness and that. But it was about, you know, always going back to what helped me, you know. So I get it. It's totally, nothing's easy. Life isn't easy. And regardless if you're in the army or not, you know, there is anxiety out there, general anxiety. So we all need to learn more. And I know I'm probably rambling on, but the other thing I don't like is, you know, like I said, you know, we have these labels, you know. Tell me this. What were you taught about PTSD in the army? You know,
I don't really remember being taught about PTSD. Just that it happens from a traumatic incident. I don't remember ever really learning about what PTSD, like symptoms of PTSD for brethren or brothers and sisters, or what it's like to. I don't really remember being taught about it. Like I remember knowing of it, knowing that your brothers and sisters have it, and that you might have it and could get it, and that happens from trauma, and that you wake up screaming at night, reaching for your weapon. Like that's what I remember the army taught me about it. And then it's the rest of it I had to learn yourself.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. In the health industry, everything's about, you know, doing beforehand, or being proactive. In the army, you got to, be there, get it all done. But we've got to be promoting health and, getting on. In the army, they don't talk about PTSD. They don't talk about anything like that. And then when I obviously came back from Afghanistan, there was a couple of sessions where they're talking about, some people might come back with PTSD, need to be aware these are the triggers. But the thing that I remembered from these sessions when they're talking about PTSD and, be mindful of, look out for this behavior and look at that, they weren't talking about the good side of things,
No.
Yes, I get it. PTSD can be heavy. And yes, I did have a severe level of PTSD to a degree, and it always picks up now and again. But there's also, like I said, wherever there's bad, there's always good. PTSD can be bad and it does affect on your mood, but it also makes you vulnerable and it makes you, like I said, hypervigilant and aware of what's going on. But my point is the thing is, we don't pretty much try to, promote and talk about mental health or anything like that, what we should be, but we should not just be talking about the bad side of it. We should be talking about, or trying to spin it around and say there is positives of it, just because you've got depression, yep, it's going to make you depressive and things. And, but you want to be able to reach out or look at, you're still alive. So, we need, and it's probably a bad example, but with the PTSD, to me, that's probably the best example. We need to be, oh, wow, hypervigilant. You're aware when you're walking down the streets, you know how many steps you take or whatever. So more education, 100% on the good and bad of everything. But
no, I completely agree. You were saying that, and it just reminded me of this quote I wrote down, and it's at the beginning of my journal. It says, "One day you'll tell your story. One day you'll tell your story about how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide." And I think it's absolutely beautiful because, like, exactly what I'm trying to get out of you and other guests is their story, because by people talking about it and talking about mental health and all that, we can give people more tools than what there's offered to them and more information and advice. So thank you for sharing. And I did want to bring up your kids was your purpose. Your kids looks like you've got a couple of purposes. So we want to talk about your purpose, but definitely your kids is your life. And my daughter is mine, and she was the reason I got up off my depressive state off the couch after a year and a half of fucking suicidal, drinking, taking drugs. And my daughter was mine. So and the reason I want to bring that up is for people that are struggling, really struggling. For me, I looked at my daughter and she was asking me to go do things, and I just wouldn't. She'd be like, "Hey, can we just go to the shop?" And I'll be like, "I just can't, just not going to do that." And then I was like, and then it hit me one day, what fucking type of role model am I being?
Exactly.
And then it's like, I'm teaching her to be a dole bludger. It's in my mind, that's what it was. Like, I'm on a pension, not working, sitting on the couch, watching TV, smoking and drinking. And I was
and
like,
that's what I mean. If we're fortunate enough to have kids, because we have kids, we're fortunate enough. So the first people they look at as role models is their parents, and there's nothing worse than not having that memory of going, "Oh, I got to have that ice cream with Dad. I got to sit." Remember that smile when we had that ice cream, Dad? Do you remember when you spilled it on my leg and you couldn't handle it? Yeah, okay. They're memories, and the kids love that, and that's what I mean. We're fortunate. It's funny because you're right. Kids have such a powerful play in any mental health or any parent, but there's a lot of people there that don't have kids, and they go, "Well, how I don't have kids?" And I said, once again, this comes down to your core value. Luckily some now have, they've got such a passion for dogs, or they forget, I've got a passion for a car. That's the same thing. I want to go out and build a car. Well, that's why you got DVA there. Let's go and get you that freaking car. Or that's why we've got ECO groups and that. Well, go and do it. And we talking about kids because they're open, they're human, they've got feelings. You can touch, they can touch back. But cars to other people have the same things, or dogs and cats. So I think you're 100% right. You and I are lucky. We have kids, and we get to have our kids and hold them and hug them, and that power of touch. So that's one of the other things. I was very shameful when I was in the army. Taught chest out, never touch, never cry, and things like that. When I lost my arms and things, I learned the power of feeling. I can't feel as normal, but I love to hug and hold my daughter, or I don't do it to my 20-year-olds that much anymore. But I love the sense of being able to just feel something, because I can't feel my hands, or my hand doesn't feel as well, my stump doesn't feel, obviously, but being able to feel to help you feel normal is very important too, or, to be smelling things. So having kids is fantastic. Or, once again, like when I was talking to that cop, because she has kids, but she goes, so in her circumstances, she's got 3 beautiful kids and we're building on that. But because she's in that heightened period, a higher level than I was now, she's saying, I can't deal with the screaming. I can't deal with things. I said, that's good. But you just told me that you got a combi van. Let's go out to the combi van for 30 minutes to do some sandpapering and get that feeling back again. And that's what we spoke about, because people forget what therapeutic means. Just smelling, feeling, doing, So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. You are also, I saw a post, you said you've been working for 15 months with a bunch of doctors in relation to eyesight, working with people about raising awareness for eyesight.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Are you able to elaborate the work you're doing with that? And obviously we can,
Look, it's funny. All that was, it was about visual impairment and building awareness for people with lost vision or impaired vision. So obviously there's a number of people out there, a number of different reasons why they've lost the sight. Liam Haven, he was, Iraq, he would have been 2006. He lost his sight from an IED blast. He's fully blind. He's a veteran. Not too many people know him, but I do, because I met him and he became like a bit of a friend to me. But there's other civilians, kids, home accidents or whatever. But it was the project was about trying to raise money and awareness to what it's like to be blind and what were the stories behind it. And in my instance, it was obviously, what was the last one memory that you had? And they couldn't capture it. But my last full sight that I feel I had, because my vision is still a bit blurred and I've got to wear glasses, was the night before. But they couldn't do the night before, because the night before I was laying on my back, in a sleeping bag, outside in a pit or whatever, and looking up, and a Chinook came past with the section that was going to be with me, and I went, oh wow, stand to, that's good. But that was rememberable. But the last thing that they drew was what I expressed to them, is me looking down at this, looking towards a creek line, looking at this thing. It turned brown, it turned black, and there was this massive eruption of fire and that. So that's what they drew. But this program that you're talking about was awareness. And it was trying to raise money to get more funding to help investigate and to build on, supports for people with blindness, or, how the sight deteriorates from, medical conditions. Very much like this episode, everyone's trying to build awareness. And, what is really disappointing, since we're talking about awareness, is that I find it very insulting when here we are and we've got to talk about, and in our signature blocks, we've got to tell what our pronouns are. But yet again, we can't accept people for the way they look. We've got to be so mindful of other people, and they want to identify themselves as a male or a female. They want to identify themselves as, a friggin' cat or something. I don't know how many sexual genders we have these days, but it's just ridiculous. Because I walk down the street and, like I said, people stare at me. It affects my kids. And the last outburst happened on Father's Day this year, when I was walking with my daughter in one hand, and behind me about 50 meters was my 2 sons. And what happened is, in front of my daughter and I, another child dropped a toy, and they picked it up. This couple walking towards the kid picked it up and gave it to the child and the mother, and they all started having a bit of laugh. And then they stopped laughing. But then when my daughter and I walked past, the kids started going, oh, look, he's got one arm. Oh, he's got one eye. Oh, he's got this. And everyone started laughing, said, don't do that, and started laughing. And I could hear what's going on. Mm-hmm. What they didn't know is my 2 boys behind them. By the time I walked probably another, few steps, my boys are having a go at them for laughing at me with my daughter. I had to stop and say, hey, what's going on? Stop, type thing. My thing is that we're so worried about everyone else, but we can't treat people normal. We can't be respectful. We can't treat me as normal, because people always judge. Everyone pass comment because of the way I look. So yes, I get a lot of anxiety and I get a lot, but at the same time, what we're talking about, the awareness from that eyesight, we need to do a lot more for mental health. You know, we have all these advocates, we have ECOs, we have people down in Canberra that are mentors and that for mental health. But once again, we have a media that don't build on mental health or physical disabilities. And what I mean, you know, you look at the news, how many disabled people do you see on the news? How many disabled people or people with mental health conditions do you see really up trying to present and things? We don't promote it. We don't try to make it norm, you know. Not saying that you can, you know, mental health is a lot difficult than physical health, but you can definitely get someone in a wheelchair to present on the news type thing to build on what the norm is and stop making us feel abnormal, you know. So I think there needs to be a lot more done on awareness, you know, like you're saying with the Eyesight Institute. So I'm always out willing to help anyone to wants to promote, you know, money to get, be able to see, because, you know, as soon as you become blind or you can't see, it has such an impact. And I think, you know, people go, oh yeah, I get it, you'll be blind. And when you go, yeah, you lose your car, and go, oh no, I get you lose your car. But it's not just that. It's the fact that how do you find, you know, how do you find your shirt?
This was my next question for you.
How do you get to see your daughter smile? I can't even see my children play on a soccer field. I've got to turn around to people and say, is that my daughter? My son was playing soccer. He comes up to me and he says, you know, oh, did you see me score that try? How good was that? And I went, I was really good, mate. You did really good. You know, just keep on the ball. Just keep on the ball. I had no idea he scored the try, but I spoke shit, you know, because that's what he needed to hear. But I could not see him. So, you know, we do things for ourselves behind the scenes, but anything to promote, I will do. You know, mental health, totally, I know I'd like to be more of an advocate towards it and a mentor and try to build on things, but at the same time, I work. I just think there's a lot to be done, and I get it. Everyone, we have all these foundations out there. Everyone wants to do more and more. But what about just taking a step back and the people walking down the street just saying, hey, glad to see you, you're alive, not just staring at you. No, people with disabilities don't want to be stared at. They want to be saying, hey, are you good? Or, wow, what happened? You know, at the same time, we need to go, you know, yep, we're all open. Oh, you look like you're having a hard day. You're okay. We've lost all this genuine, you know, care for people because we just give a shit about social media, or we care about pretending. We need to get rid of this fakeness, as people call it, and generally care for people now, you know. So.
It's crazy to me that people are still passing judgment like that. Do you find, I'm just curious, do you find it's more younger or older people? Do you find mid-range, it's everyone? I'm just curious as to where society's at the moment, because obviously they're not where I thought they were.
It's a good question. And it's funny, you got to put yourself in my position. I have a 7-year-old daughter. So when I go to her school, every time people look at me and the kids, oh, wow, you've only got a hand. I've got to be open to that. I've got to be tolerant. I've got to be willing to explain something. I've got to be upcoming. So every day I get fronted by small children. Children are inquisitive, and we as adults, as a parent, need to embrace that and allow that. And I do. And I build. But there's also times where it gets too much. And, you know, I moved down here to Brisbane. My middle son, or youngest son, moved down here as well. We went to a park. I was there playing with my children. And one of these children just kept following and pointing and laughing at me and things like that. And I kept playing, and I just ignored it. I said, it's all good, blah, blah, blah. And my son snapped. So it ranges in ages with kids, but I pulled my son, said, my son, stop, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's any age, and I'm more open to kids, and I'm more, you know, I want to embrace their inquisitiveness and then nurture them a bit and say, hey, yeah, come and ask me, come and do whatever, because that's what I prefer. But when it comes to adults, they're kids. They are rude, they are shocking. And when I came to Brisbane, I was down in a park with my daughter, playing with my daughter, and a kid came and goes, oh, wow, you got one arm. And I said, oh, that's good, you want to touch it. And then mum comes up and said, oh, can you not tell my son that? And I said, tell him what? And she goes, you just told him that you lost it in a war. And I went, yeah, well, that's what happened. She goes, well, can you reword it another way? I didn't know what to say. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was in a war, I was in a battlefield, and the bomb blew up in front of me and it blew my arm off. And I looked at her and I said, is that better? What else do you say? Like, it's not just, you know, so, and then I know I've had a number of relationships And people don't believe me when I turn around and go, people will be watching me and eat and doing things. And you're sitting at a table. And a couple of my partners, my current partner now, sees it almost every day. People just stare. I don't get it. I get it. They're inquisitive and they want to know more. But when you're sitting there having dinner and then your partner turns around and says, "Can you stop? We're just trying to have a quiet meal." "Oh, sorry about that. We're just interested." We'll go and interest someone else. But it's more so when you're walking down the street with your kids, or you're walking and you're just trying to have a family day and people stare. It doesn't matter what ages they are. To be honest with you, the better people I find are the cow cockies and older people. And the reason I say that is because the cow cockies are the ones that come out and more open. And the cow cocky says, "Oh, holy shit, mate, looks like you've been in the wars." And I went, "Yeah, I was literally." He goes, "What?" And I told him, and he goes, "Oh, wow, man, well, thanks for your service, much appreciated." You know, the older people come up and they go, "Oh, it looks like you've had a hard life. You okay?" And you go, "Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was in the army, blah, blah, blah." And you just start talking. But anyone after, I don't know, let's say 50 or anything like that, because people at my age still look at me and they just look at you weirdly differently and stare and pass sly comments, because you can see it. And I can pull up any of my children here today and they can probably tell you a story that happened yesterday or the next day or whatever, because it's not something that you can 100% see. And you go, "Oh, I'm imagining this." But then you go, "Did you see that?" I went, "Yep." Because it just happens every day. People stare, people look at it, or you walk past and they look twice, but it hurts the kids because you're out there having time with them. I get it, everyone's inquisitive, but it's like, "Hey, mate, how you doing? What happened?"
Yeah,
No,
they
the
forget that
good thing
you've got
is,
feelings as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like that awareness, and the awareness people aren't aware. Treat everyone human. Instead of staring, just say, "Hey, what happened?" Or, words are more powerful than, stares. You staring is just going to cause someone, but by you having words and talking will create more empathy and give you a bit more warmth. It was actually funny. Like I said, I was out drinking last night, out till late with mates. And for some reason, I always get asked, "Well, let's go with the eye patch," or, whatever. But I was out drinking last night, had a good friend with me, one of the girls from work, and a guy just walked on and goes, "Mate, like the eye patch. What happened? Were you in the army or something?" I went, "Yeah, man, I'm in the eye patch." "Oh, so you really lost your eye?" And that. They're the type of conversations anyone would welcome, because people are just being genuine, people are just being open, and people forget how to be human. And that's what I mean. So it's hard to say what ages, but I think when you're when you're when you're born, or you then, end up an incident happen and an injury happen, you then have a disability. As a person with a disability, we come very compassionate and very open-minded to the people around us, because one, we don't want to be seen as disabled, we don't want to be seen as angry, but we also want to help other people to understand what it's like for us. Yes, obviously it's a bit easier when you have a physical disability, but when you put a mental health on it as well, it's even harder. So you break everything up. But I guess anyone with a disability, mental, physical, you just want to be seen, treated normally. But at the same time, you're trying to build on that awareness so everyone understands what it's like. And yeah.
So can you explain what it's like to be blind and the process of trying to figure out how to live life with majority no sight? Like, you were completely blind to begin with, from my understanding. So what was the journey like for you to figure out life? And your touch, was your sensations, the other sensations going haywire? Obviously your hands were also injured. So like, what were you feeling? What was the sensation? What was the journey?
I'll try to explain it even up to this present day, because this might give it a bit of holism as well. But so, yep, I was blind, and then I had to prove to the Defence Force I could live alone with my wife, and we moved into this flat that they purchased or hired for us. When I was there, I was blind. I said, "All right, that's it." To my wife, "Can you go and buy me a Braille book?" It was just a switch. I had my guys overseas. I needed to move on, and I had to fight. I knew for some reason it just came about, And actually, if I can take a step back before, and I know we want to talk about my site, I do actually probably need to identify another personal guy. Where did this drive come from? And it's just reminded me where the drives come from. So you know how I said you need to remember your core value, where you come from, and what you do. I'm a, what do they call it? A soldier, a brat. My father was in the army. My father's a Vietnam veteran. he wasn't an easy person to live with. You know, you could say there would be a lot of people today that would have taken him elsewhere. You know, would have reported him to the police. You know, he's hit by belts, cords, all this type of thing, emotionally, physically, you know, pushed very to the limits. If you call it abuse these days, 100%. But if you asked me that question again, and if someone said, if I give you 24 hours to think where your core strength came from, it would have been from my father. And the reason I say that, because I think it's important, and I think it's very important where people to know where they came from. But my father taught me who I didn't want to be. Mm-hmm. He hit me. He made me terrified. He made me scared. And he made me the person who I am, which I love him for, and we have a great relationship. But I vowed I would not be like him. There's a difference. So he actually made me. So when I got blown up and I was looking at me and I was in the hospital, he was the first person there. He was the first person. He's always got my back. I knew he would be there. And then when I lost my sight, I just had to drive. And I guess it all came from him, because I vowed I would be nothing like him. I won't be that angry. I won't be that abusive, and I won't be that emotionally scarring to my kids, you know. So I turned around to my wife and I said, go and get me a Brable. And unfortunately, when she came back from going shopping, I then played a joke and said, oh, shit, my sight's coming. And all I could see was grey and white. And then for months, all I could see was grey and white. And I couldn't see anything. So we got home. And then, like I said, I went back to work, you know, 2 months after being blown up. And they put me in the ops cell, and I couldn't type, and I was trying to type, and I'm writing, like, you know, so I could see what I could do. Or I was happy taking the files and trying to walk, following, you know, grab rails, or, you know, they'd show me where to go. When I was doing my running, I'd have 2 soldiers on my left and right, so they'd make sure that I didn't fall and trip, and they'd go, yep, keep going, we're running straight, I know where we are, because we only ran where I knew and I was comfortable. So as I kept doing more, my sight kept gradually improving. So eventually, you know, from, you know, not just doing filing or sitting there and counting paper or doing that, I was then able to actually freely go to the printer, or was freely able to access a computer. When I was using a computer, I was using magnifying equipment. I was using anything to help me to learn to write. But at the same time, I was keeping it simple because I needed to use a computer every day. But then as we kept progressing, you know, the sight kept coming back. I kept pushing it further on a bike and swimming and that. But it is what it is now. So I totally got no sight. I've got sight in my eye where I can drive, but I try not to drive at night, because obviously it's more, you know, there's other lights, illumination affects my sight. So when it's coming into it, obviously one eye, can't close, I can't look away, I can't do anything. So it just makes it a lot harder for me. But I guess where my sight ties in today, and what happens is I'm more fatigued. It's not that my other senses kick in. I've lost more, if that makes sense, because when I'm at work and I've got to write reports or I've got to do things, I'm hearing impaired. I had a bomb blow off my head. I choose not to wear hearing aids because I think people will look at me and go, wow, he's got a hearing impairment. But I want them to think my hearing's normal. So it's something I keep for myself. But when I'm there writing a report, because I can't see properly and I've only got one eye, I become really fatigued, and I miss a lot of conversations behind me. You know, people are talking to me, or I can't hear what's going on because I'm so focused on what I'm doing, because I only can type with 3 fingers and my sight's not the best. It's good enough where I can drive, I can see the keyboard, but I've got to focus to, you know, see the screen, look at the keyboard, type with 3 fingers, where you lose things. So you hear people, and like a lot of the people with sight impairments that I met, yeah, I think some of your senses do improve. And I guess what I mean is my hearing hasn't, you know, oh, wow, I can hear. My hearing hasn't improved. My touch hasn't improved. So my sights and that haven't improved. My, you know, touch and taste hasn't improved any, but I'm just more aware. More hypervigilant, not hypervigilant at all, just more aware. So, you know, I know, you know, if I'm going to go somewhere, I have a greater recall memory. So because of the lost sight and because of things I know, and I stick to patterns, or I know, you know, where the steps and hazards are. So for myself, I just say I haven't gained any other senses, but my recall has become phenomenal to the point where I can recall more information because of all the stresses and hardship from my losses. So I'm lucky that way, you know. I'm crap at names, I'm probably crap at numbers, but if someone says, hey, we need to get here, and I've only driven there once, I'll get there. You know, so my recall is pretty good. Or if you tell me something, I'll be able to write it down the next day, 2 days without taking notes, you know. So yeah.
Alrighty, that's some positives. Some positives. We want to touch on your medication. So you said you were on lots of medication. Are you still on medication? And what are you touching on? What are you taking now?
Yeah. So when I was obviously in hospital, I was on whatever they put me on there. Even when they told me to go and see psychiatrists would recommend, you know, antidepressants and that. But I never was constant on them, and I never believed in them, because when I did try antidepressants, they made me feel not me. I wasn't aware. I like I said, I'm going to keep saying this now, because I do put a lot of this on my father. My father made me who I was. At the same time, I learnt all these strategies, and I could feel, and I remember who I was. I wanted to be that live, but when I was always put on medication, because remember that they put me on medication, I go, fuck, I don't like this, and I'd go off it, and they go, no. And then in the army, they go, the doctors recommended you to be on medication. If you don't follow this, you know, you go, well, fine. I'm taking the medication just to stay in, but I never took it, because when they told me to take it, it was like a brain fog. I wasn't aware. I wasn't alive. I just felt numb. And then when I saw my friends come back and them go on medication, I just looked at them and I said, oh, wow, I'm glad, you know. And they said, I don't know how you did it. And I said, mate, there's days that I didn't do it. No, there's days I was sitting on a hill. There was days that I was crying. There was days I was burning myself in the shower. There was days that it was up and down. It was hard. You know, I still get triggers today. And so to answer your question, no, I'm not on medication. Initially, they tried putting me on medication, and like I said, I didn't like it. So I'm self-medicated. And when I say self-medicated, and like the rest of us, when I think there's a lot of veterans out there like that, we don't mean that lightly. We mean, you know, we've endured a lot. We've just gone a very long way, hard way of doing it. But I think it was the best thing for me, because I see friends and I hear people on it now, they try to come off it, but they don't have that resilience, or they can't, because they're that dependent on it. A lot of them come off it, and it's hard for them to come off, and they do it, but then a lot have to go back on it as well. But I'm just being fortunate enough. I chose that hard road, and I'm glad I chose that hard road. And yeah, I'm medicated free. I don't take medication. I don't believe in it. I don't even take Panadol when I get a headache. If I need Panadol, there's a good reason that I need it, and I'll take it then. But 9 times out of 10, my girlfriend's either telling me to take Panadol or something. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm the same with medication. I was on, I think it was like 18 to 20 tablets a day, depending on how I was feeling. And to be honest, I didn't need them. Like I cut them off, and I stopped taking them. Like I'm the same. I don't take Panadol. I try not to put any of those in my body, because I see the effects it has on people. There's people I know that the army has given them endone for 2 years, like, which is something you're supposed to take for up to 6 weeks.
I was about to say that's a lot of endone, but
he's been prescribed for 2 years, and then tries coming off it, and there's a drug addict. Like, he's not a drug addict, but like, it can be looked at as a drug addict because of stuff like that. And the medication is, I understand that the doctors and the military gives it because it is signed off, and the doctors are the ones saying it. But I think we really need to look into alternative therapies more than just dosing people up with painkillers and fucking antipsychotics and antidepressants.
Can I ask you a question? Because there's something that really bothers me a lot in my work now, and even when I was, you know, leaving Defence Force. What do you think? What name do you think veterans have in society these days? When you hear, or if a civilian hears the word veteran, what do you think they hear, or what image do they get? Does that make sense? What image has the veteran created for themselves when the word veteran is said?
Now is different to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, to say veteran, people would think Afghan, like the war. Now, I don't really know. I know what I think of. I don't know now. To be honest. It's probably not a good. It's probably not good. It's
Why?
probably
Why?
so I've noticed in the veteran community, it's a very negative community. Like it's a
Yeah.
fucking very negative. It's no one's really uplifting, and every organization is for themselves. They're not trying
Yeah.
to help other organizations, same as veterans. And then when you are trying to help, there's veterans who'll put you down because they're not at that level in their journey yet. And so they'll put you
Yeah.
down because that's what they know.
Yeah.
I found it, we talk about this brotherhood and sisterhood for life.
Mm.
Now I have found that with the fucking few people who I've kept close with me, everyone else, there is like maybe no, even then, like I don't really see this community that we all talk about and sprout and think that we have.
Mm.
I think it's a very negative world. I know why. I think a lot of veterans are lost once they leave the military. I think their persona and their ego are so tied up in the veteran, in the uniform, that when that's taken away from them, they
Their
lose.
identity.
That's their identity, and once you lose
Yeah.
your identity and you don't replace it, I think you're fucking you're fairly well lost.
So this is the other thing I've worked out. Yeah. And the reason I ask that, because it bothers me. And I don't think veterans give ourselves enough credit, and we let people take it away from us. And what I mean is you're 100% right. When you look at the Vietnam, Timor, Iraq and Afghanistan, when the threat was there, a veteran was seen as a hero, was seen as a soldier, was seen as someone. Now everything's gone. When you say I'm a veteran, people think automatically of the conditions or labels. And what I mean what is promoted by the social media, suicide, PTSD. So when they think of veterans, they go, oh, well, he must have seen some crap. He must not be well, or he must, there's a negative aspect to it. And there's only one group of people I actually blame for it.
Veterans?
Well, no, they're the tool in it.
Okay.
I blame the Defence Force. And the reason for that, and like I said it and you said it, the Defence Force is our identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I shouldn't, and I'm going to take this back actually, it's not just the Defence Force. I blame Defence Force with society, because society influences the Defence Force. And you'll probably get what I mean in a sec. So we join the army, we're a vet, we leave when we're a veteran, we've done what we've done. But when we leave, and because the Defence Force is influenced so much by the society, when we're in the military and we get injured, they've now got this medical system that doesn't allow us to think for ourselves. They've got this medical system. As soon as you're J3, you've got to go to rehab. You don't have any, option. You're J3. You've got to go to rehab. You've got to do this. Okay. To try to cut the long story short, let's just hypothetically say you're J3. You end up doing your knee, and you end up doing all this other stuff to your knee because you've been withdrawn from your troops. You get mental health. Okay. So what happens in the Defence Force? You join the Defence Force. You're given everything. Yeah. So when you're given everything, you're given clothes on your back, you're given your shoes, you're given PT, you're given everything. You got it. You're now J3. You're withdrawn from your troops. Okay. Back in the day, if you were injured and you had an ankle sprain or a broken ankle, you remained with your troops, and the lieutenant and the sergeant met with you. Now you get withdrawn regardless of shoulder reconstruction. If they went field, you would go into a rehab. You'd go in a rehab platoon or a re-details once everyone went field, and when you get back, you get put in the platoon. My point is they give you all this stuff, and then you lose this identity. And then as your condition gets worse, you need another re-shoulder or another recon of your shoulder. Your mental health is now impact. You then go down the MEC system. All right. So when you're J3, you've got an RC, a rehab consultant within a Defence Force. You also got a GP. At this time, you're also probably seeing a physio for your shoulder. Okay. You've got 3 people on your books. At the same time, you're now going to see a psychologist because you're feeling depressed. You're adjusting to your injury. You've got 4 people now treating you. And you've got to keep seeing these 4 people because you're in a rehab platoon. You've got to be focusing on your rehab. There's still no time here to promote and to build on your independence and to build on the purpose and the identity that you once had. By this time, the soldier is now going, oh, I don't know what to do. And they put them in this rehab platoon where they're all a little bit negative. I don't like the Defence Force. I'm doing this. They're all getting this banter together, and they're just, low talk, negative talk. So when they get out of the Defence Force, not only do they have an RC, GP, psychiatrist, a psychologist, They also get a transition support person. So you're now up to 5 people. So potentially when you leave the Defence Force because of all the people, you're dependent on 6 different people.
If not more. Yep.
Or more, exactly. So when they get out, they're lost. And then when we get into society, they want to know why we can't self-manage, because they gave us everything. And then when we left and we became to a point where they thought that we couldn't help ourselves, we become reliant. And as an RC now, what I see is veterans on my books or veterans on other OTs or other people's books that just have doubt. And what I mean is they go to ECO groups or they go to, other organisations to start building that confidence and identity again. But it takes so long because they lost that identity, they lost that confidence, they didn't get that opportunity to keep proving themselves because they had 7 or 8 people support them over a 2-year process. You now got a habit you need to break, So when they get out of the army and they're on a rehab program under DBA, they want to know, why aren't we getting any momentum? Well, I'll tell you why you're not getting any momentum, because you didn't respect their autonomy at the start. No, you didn't give them the choice. You didn't give them the control. And that's where it led to where the veterans are today, because people didn't respect their autonomy. When I joined the army, I always had the belief that, the Australian soldier was known for its character and, being outgoing and larrikin. I think we've lost that because of, media, because of the negativity on it. We need to, the veteran is a brotherhood, and I love it. I wouldn't do anything different. I'm proud to say I have that past, and on days I looked at it, I've got my mates, I've got my friends, I still socialise, but I don't live in it anymore because I know I need to move on and it doesn't help me. But at the same time, we as veterans need to be saying, hey, we're better than what you think we are. We're not as crippled as you make us out to be. And like we discussed before, you're a tool to me. This is my life. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can help me, but I don't need this. Let me have my own autonomy. Let me choose this, okay? Because I see a lot of veterans, and I feel because of the stigma that's being brought up now, they've lost that confidence in themselves. They've got that self-doubt, or because, the society has influenced the Defence Force. We've got to have these genders now, and we also got to change the MEC system and just make sure we support everyone correctly and make sure everyone's got a job. You've got to have a rehab consultant. And trust me, when people say, that's a load of crap, you don't have to go, J3, you don't have to have a rehab consultant. I worked on 2 army bases, and the rule was very simple. If you become J3, you need to go to rehab team, or you need to go on a rehab plan. 9 times out of 10, I had people, everyone had a legitimate condition, but I had people on there with an ankle strain or something, a roll or a muscle strain to the wrist or whatever. It's not needed. Build on the confidence, build on the autonomy, tell them they can do it, build on the resilience. That's where resilience comes from. But I think because society, because of the Defence Force, and I'm not saying that we need help in transition, because we do, but it all starts from society, the Defence Force, what we gave people, to where we then, disabled them or, took their economy or their autonomy away from them by giving them 6 different people, I don't know, I can't even remember when you were in, but I joined in 95. I had a GP, and then the GP would go, you can't go field. And I'm going field with the cast, mate. See me if I can't. You can't do that these days. That's resilience. We've lost that.
But,
so
yeah, that was my career. Just fucking truck on until that. But I am suffering a bit now. I wish I did look after my body a little bit more. But to be honest, is resilience. We did have it. I was known for a year as a secco as the tape corporal, because I literally was having tape holding my body parts together so I could keep going bush. And so we do like that, because then even when I was getting out, guys would literally stub their toe and wouldn't go bush. And you're like, fucking stubbed your toe, broken 4 toes and still gone bush.
And that's what I mean. I get it. I get it. And you're right. I went with a broken wrist, ripped the cast off. I got in trouble. That's it. You're not coming field again. Well, that's my fault. And you do pay for it years on. But you know what? Everyone in society pays years on. You get old, everyone gets some form of spondylosis, Soldiers just get it brought on a lot quicker than anyone else, There's always health conditions. You can't be afraid of that. But I do feel that, now when you hear the word veterans, and even not just from my veteran background, health professional background, and what I see in the community and what I hear, but I do think when you say veteran, we hear a more of a negative impact because we are trying to segregate ourselves as one, or they hear the negative things. They don't hear about the resilience enough.
I don't think veteran is associated with strength anymore. Like if you look at like the rules and shit coming in from the high echelon, we're very like, even when I was in, just before I left, was you had to cut out, we had to cut away all the symbology that represented fucking death and strength, and like Grim Reapers and Punisher and all that stuff that units use throughout their fucking time in wars, from fucking Vietnam right through to Afghan, probably even back. And you're like, you cut that away until like even the soldiers ourselves were like, what fucking type of military are we in? Now, I agree with good things like the drinking culture slowly being cut away. I think it's fucking brilliant. Though in saying that, I also see that the mateship and brotherhood is maybe not as there as it was when we were drinking every fucking weekend with each other and in forging that brotherhood. I do see that it's maybe not as tight and as strong in the veteran community anymore. I don't know if that was forged with drinking, or maybe it was that you were injured and going out there and your mate knew you were fucking injured, yet still putting in 100%. So they trusted you more. I don't know where it is, but I definitely see that I got out, 2 years ago now. I joined in 2006, got out 2 years ago, so 15 years. And it changed different from when I was, and let alone from 95 to fucking now. Is different. And I definitely do. I'm not saying that the military or the army or the people are weaker, but the perception I have of defense military now is definitely a different one than what I had 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. But yeah, so I don't know where that comes from though.
And that's the thing. So I do think like society does influence it, and there are good influences like the alcohol. Like we used to drink a lot and binge drink. That was the army culture, and that was a good impact on society. But this society influencing the defence force, like you can't see dead bodies anymore. Or I used to get dragged to a morgue before we even went to Timor. This is dead body looks like. I can't do that because that's not culturally correct. Well, bullshit. You can't hit, I'm not saying there's a level of bastardization and there's a level of retraining, and it's in the army to make sure that people can train in the fog of war. There is there's definitely a line there. I totally agree. You shouldn't be bashing people. You shouldn't be doing things like that. But when you're telling people to make them walk and longer and harder, and that's not bastardization, that's extra training, and that's there for a reason. And that's what I mean. We shouldn't be influenced by it. But regardless, like I was saying, I just think that, so I do see that when I look at it, because the war aspect has finished, and when they hear veteran, they think of, oh, wow, they think of media, and the media shows suicide. You hear about, PTSD, and that's when, oh, wow, they must be struggling. Oh, wow, thanks for your service. There's a lot of gratitude out there, 100%. But at the same time, I think if we were able to, build on what the Defence Force gave us and taught us, and we're able to keep it from that medical perspective and help people maintain it as they got out and started respecting their autonomy as they went out, well, it would help a lot longer as they transitioned as well. And I guess that autonomy in that transition sense would be, well, I wasn't born and my family don't like Townsville. I need to be transitioned out of Brisbane. All right, well, you're going out. Well, we're going to move you to Brisbane now so you can get settled while you're transitioning. So it's respecting autonomy, respecting people. There's so much you could talk about, but I do feel that, we're taking a lot of autonomy over. Unfortunately, like you said, that when people get together, it can be a negative impact, because soldiers do like talking about the past. To me, when you're talking about the past, there's a lot of hurt with me and there's a lot of hurt with other people. So that brings up negative feelings, and I'd rather be talking about positive feelings. So, I know up there in Townsville, you got the Oasis. What a great attitude, what a great opportunity it is. It's promoting, veterans getting out in the community. It's promoting all that type of thing, and it's providing that great aspect to, the community. This is what veterans can do. What they need to make sure that doesn't happen is they get that negative culture in there, because as soon as that happens, and that's what there's a lot of concerns with, that's what's going to, pretty undo the veterans and that. But, I do feel, the brotherhood's good and strong, but I just feel that the name that we should be living up to as a veteran, yep, I'm a veteran, I'm proud of it, and that, has diminished a bit because of the negativity. And, it's not just the society and it's not just the Defence Force, it is the veteran alone as well, because we need to look after ourselves first. And like we discussed before, possibly, looking at the psychiatrist and psychologist as a means to help us get better, a tool, but we don't need to be, dependent on them,
We have to take responsibility for ourselves and our healing journey, whatever that may look like as an individual. Yeah. I wanted to talk about your children quick, and if you know much about their journey with your healing, maybe you could talk about how you could see it affected them. If maybe you've chatted with them, especially your 20-year-old, Kyron, if you know how your journey affected them, because I think that's something we don't talk about a lot, is the family life behind it.
Well, how's this? Like I've been talking about, I don't talk with a forked tongue. I'm saying we need to build awareness. Why don't you hear from the child himself?
Chuck him on. Bring him in.
Hey, mate. How are you?
Hey, mate. I'm Joel. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm Kyron. Obviously, my son.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, mate, do you mind if I just ask you some questions? I'm just here doing the podcast with your dad, obviously, of trying to understand about veteran mental health, mindset, and then better understand his story and get it out there to people so they can understand what veterans go through. So if you wouldn't mind, I just have a couple of questions now. They might be fairly personal. You might get emotional. I don't know. But if you're okay with that, if we can go forward.
Yep.
Hey, mate, your dad told me that you answered the door when you were 4 years old after his incident. Now, do you remember, can you explain, would you know how you felt, or when you've looked back on it now, that memory, do you know how it made you feel? What emotions came with that? Did you even understand, or did that come later in the journey?
I don't know if I necessarily understood what was going on at the time. I think I had a general understanding that my dad was in a bad situation. I don't really remember what happened that day. I barely have a memory of around then because it was very long ago. But I do remember being very sad, and I don't know, I just had a lot of questions that weren't being answered because I was so young, and I guess I didn't really need to know at the time.
Yep.
But
so obviously your dad's journey has been long. It's been long and amazing. Where you're a massive part of that. Now, him and your mum were together at the time. Did you notice anything in their relationship growing up that was affected, that you could see that was from the incident, and then how that affected you, the family? If there's things you notice, the reason I'm asking is so that other kids, other families of veterans can understand. Like, we're trying to understand the struggles and difficulties of veteran life. So if you could share any information or knowledge or experience.
Well, there was definitely a lot of stress put on it through, obviously my dad's injuries were quite severe. And mainly, I guess there was a big struggle with my dad trying to figure out who he was again, because obviously he had been in the army since he was 18. That was kind of his whole life. And just rediscovering his purpose for a long time. I guess that took a bit. And then obviously my mum had to sacrifice quite a bit back then to help look after him. Yeah, she had 2 kids. She had a full-time job as well. So back then, I'm not sure if I truly understood what was going on, but it was a very stressful time for both of them. And it did leave me a bit impacted, I would say. Like, I definitely saw a lot of arguments that left me quite sad, usually, or just questioning if anything was going on that I could help. And ultimately, it came down to no. As a kid, there's not much I could do. It purely came down to my parents, and eventually they did divorce, which was probably for the best. And actually, no, it definitely was for the best, because unfortunately the marriage wasn't going where I would assume that it was supposed to go.
Mhm.
After then, once they were separate,
How did you feel with that separation? Do you remember, like, I don't know what age that was for you, but
no,
did
I do
you,
remember that day. My dad sat me out on a trampoline and he basically told me, not sure if I can say it, I don't want to misquote, but he
I can
basically
bleep out
said,
anything.
yeah, he basically said, like, I've had enough. Like, there's been too much argument, there's too much stress. I need to leave and figure out who I am. So he left. He made sure that he told me that he loves me and me and my brother, and he made sure to drill that in. Like, it wasn't like he was abandoning us. And then after he left, there was definitely a complication where I ended up staying with my mum majority. That was just due to a lot of emotional confusion as a kid, not understanding what was truly going on. And as the years progressed and I got older, I definitely gravitated more towards my dad, purely because of just the man that he was and the role model that he was in my life.
Can you
And-
explain? Like, go deeper into that? Like, what was like? Who was he to you? Like, what were you seeing as a kid? What lessons was he teaching you? What? Yeah.
Very, very slowly, I began to put the picture together of what my dad had been through and what he was going through. And now that I'm older and I can look back on it with hindsight, and probably for the last 6, 7 years, he has been the role model of my life and how I try to shape my mindset and everything. The reason being is he went through such a severe injury and was able to come back, represent Australia in multiple sports, get over his PTSD, get over all the mental health issues, put that all aside, and then focus on bettering himself. So he ended up going to uni, as I'm not sure if you're aware. I'm not sure what he's told you, but he went to uni, did a full degree, is now a full-time occupational therapist, instead of sitting at home and living off the gold card, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to talk for anyone here, but I know it is done.
Mhm.
So he's not only chosen not to be a victim to his injuries, which is something which is very apparent in my generation, is a victim mindset, which I absolutely despise, because my dad has been through so much. And
Yeah, what a role model. Like, what an inspiration, just to, like, even you can even just scroll on his Facebook, which I did obviously before this, and you just, man, like, how that's why I like this podcast. Like, how does he keep going? Do you know how? Do you know what? Do you like? Yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Like,
he's definitely told me that me and my brother were a big part in why he continued,
Mhm.
or why he never gave up on himself, I guess.
how does that make you feel that
Oh,
you and your brother
proud, I
kept him
guess.
alive?
I'm very, very proud of my father, and there will never be a day that I'm not grateful for everything that he's done. Even now, he still looks after me. Like, obviously, I'm living in his house now. And yeah.
And what's he like as a man, as a person, as a human now, compared to, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, if you can remember that long, like, say, even like 5 years ago? Like, how has he grown in his mindset? Has it grown mentally, and has his mindset changed? Have you seen him become more like stronger and more resilient? And
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I'm not too sure on time frames, but probably around when I would have been in grade 7 through to 9, that would have been 5 years ago ish. He was definitely a lot more angry, because PTSD, mental health issues. And over the years, he definitely learned to be, I'm not sure if the word's compassionate, not sure what the word is exactly, but he's a lot more open than he used to be. He's very caring now. Not to say that he wasn't before, but he can display it a lot better than he would have.
Mhm.
I don't know if that comes down to kind of the old masculinity that his father would have taught to him,
the
but
old stigma, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I always, like, I want to be a better father than he was. And that's purely because he's already such a great father. And I strive to be better than him. And I just want to make him proud, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's bloody awesome. And his healing journey, so obviously with his injuries, do you see much discrimination against him? Do many people look like because he's mentioned a bit, and then what are your thoughts on it, like when people do act like that? Like, how do you respond?
I mean, it's difficult when it comes to kids, because obviously with a kid, if they're staring, it's like you can't get angry at a kid necessarily for not understanding what's going on. But sometimes when it gets out of hand and a kid is saying stuff, pointing, continuing to stare, it gets to a point where I will say something to the parents, because in my opinion, that's a failure on their half to teach a bit of respect, a bit of decency. I know my dad's had to do it before as well. But usually you get people staring and you just have to kind of deal with it, I guess. And there was a situation maybe 2 months ago where we were down at a river and 2 kids were pointing and staring, and the mother actually laughed, thought it was funny. And I just remember something kind of snapped, and I turned straight around, walked straight up to her face, and I said, "Why the fuck are you laughing? You need to be teaching your kids some respect. This man fought for this country and you're laughing." Can't remember exactly how else it went, but she tried to backpedal and say that, "Oh, I wasn't laughing at that. I'm not dumb. I've seen it before." Ended up leaving, and my dad was like, "Thank you," like blah, 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 because he gets sick of having to deal with it too. But I mean, it's difficult because you don't see a lot of people with injuries like my dad, and kids can't help but stare, I guess. So it is understandable. You got to be able to understand it from their point of view. But overall, usually it's pretty good. Usually most people are quite respectful, and yeah, that's about that.
And what's your journey been like? Like, has it been difficult for you going through all this? Has there been difficult times? Is it a lot of good times? Like, because obviously there'd be some struggles, and there'd be some times where you need to probably be more responsible and do more than someone of your age growing up is normally required to do. So what was your journey like as being the kid of a veteran, but not only just a veteran, but a kid of a veteran who's got mental and physical injuries?
I mean, it's a bit difficult to remember when I was very young, but through late primary school and throughout high school, definitely I would say I was a bit more emotionally mature. I definitely had some difficult times myself, due to just like family reasons, the divorce, and just how my family operated and stuff like that. And the main reason I was able to push through the difficult parts of my life is because I looked at my father and I was like, he has been through worse than me, both physically and mentally, by so much, and he's still here pushing forward to be a better man, better father, and that ultimately inspired me to be a better son and continue to push forward myself and become hopefully one day a better man than he is.
That's amazing. And what about the kids at school? Did they treat you any differently? Was there any bullying? Was people say shit? Like, or were you bigger than them?
It would be very, very rare for someone to say something negative about my father. It definitely happened maybe a very small handful of times, but all my friends in high school who knew my father had an unbelievable amount of respect for him, purely because I only had good things to say about my father, and they knew what he had done for me. So there was a lot of respect from my friends for my father. Barely any negatives from other kids in my high school. I honestly couldn't even remember any negative comments about my father, specifically whether it was from injuries or anything else.
Yeah, amazing. Hey, and thanks for sharing. But I'm going to use this opportunity, or I want you to use this opportunity, because this is going to be on the internet forever. Do you want to look into the camera and give a message to your dad? This is going to be out there. Let him know Because I don't know, is he in the room with you now?
Yeah, he's sitting on the
Yeah.
couch in front of me.
Tell him to get out, and then he can read the message when listen to the message when he listens to the podcast, and then you
Yeah.
can give him a message that's out there for the world to see.
Dad, Mark Lydiard, you are a man who has instilled a lot of discipline and motivation within me personally. You are the sole role model of my life. I've based my personality, morals, and ethics upon to become a better man. To watch you go through your hardships and still come out the man you are today was pretty inspiring. And I could never put into words how proud of you I am. And I know you know that I love you more than anything. And thank you for being the man that you are and continuing to push forward.
And thank you for sharing your story and your thoughts about your dad. And yeah, it was amazing and beautiful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me chat to your son.
Okay.
That was amazing. And yeah, for him sharing his story, because I think it's important that the kids' stories and the wives and the partners also get out there more, other than just the veteran side of things, because it's only that's a part of the story. So yeah.
No, I agree, mate. Totally agree.
Hey,
Yeah.
we didn't really touch on it. You touched on it, but I didn't really question was your sudden departure from defense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you didn't really know why that happened. What are your thoughts on it now, looking back? Are you holding some like a grudge for those individuals? Is this a higher defense thing? Do you reckon it was a 3CR thing, or you won't post it a 3CR, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Do you reckon it was the CO's decision? Like, because in my head, and I try to think fucking logically, is you had over 10 years experience in EOD tech. You've had lived experience, wealth of knowledge. Like, you could have been a motivational speaker for defense for the next fucking 30 years, but I just don't understand why they would boot you. And so, and because one, it fucking blows my mind that they would even.
It's funny. And it's funny, isn't it? You could do the defence force for unfair dismissal.
Because you could still provide a job.
Yeah. So what happened is I know I went down to Sydney. I did a search course, and that search course, obviously I was EOD, but it was a particular search course. I forget what it was, but I went down there and did it. I forget why I wanted to do that particular course, but it might not even been a search course. It could have been like a sub 2 to 1 or something. But anyway, I remember it was a challenge because of my site and that, but that course had to adapt to me because they had to allow for everything. And so that put that course under scrutiny and put that course on a really fine line. I actually failed it. And when they said, oh, you failed, the whole cohort said, well, we're handing our thing in. There's no reason why you should have failed it. You're just doing this because I actually passed all the tests. They failed me on this map part of it, or, map to ground. And they said, no, this is crap. But I went back, redid the course and passed it because they were able to get the correct support in and for me to do it. And then I went and did another course and I passed that. So I think what happened, and to be honest with you, when it came to subject 1, I applied for the course. We did what we needed to. We were trying to get into the waivers. I was starting to ask questions, well, how am I going to do sword drill? Will I be doing it with my left hand so I can't do the right hand? I think that started getting people to ask questions because I wanted to pass the course, but I needed to let people know, hey, what's going to happen when I get there? I'm not going to be this simple. So I think because my name was on the subject 1, panel list, we're going to get panel, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, I think I was about to drive down there. And the reason I say that is because I know that the weekend before, the unit went away, and I went, "Oh, I'm not going. I'm going to Canungra to do my subject 1." And that week they called me in. They said, "Yeah, Sergeant Michael Lydiard, you're not promoted, or Sergeant Michael Lydiard will not be promoted or be attending Subject 1 Wireless course," because that weekend I said, "Fuck it, I'm going away with you, and I'm going to backdoor this and tell all the air commandants that I work with, all the training people, to get used to keep me in the, get me down on the course." I think, to answer your question, why? I think it's more so the fact that I wasn't deployable. I was a number. I was more
Maybe
of
a
a
bit
risk
too
for the
difficult.
Yeah, that's it. They took my career away from me. I was in a warrant officer acting role for a good year, 2 years. I was running, and when you look at it, I was running this blast Bexel and CTC for 2 years, not with one incident, glowing PARs, went out and did every exercise with them, did field. Like you said, I could have got a restricted military career where it could be training down at Kapuka or down at the EOD school or at CTC. I could have been doing admin work or rear details at 3CR, whatever. It could have been a CSM, but I wouldn't have been deployable. There's always plenty of options. However, someone made the ultimate decision, and then I learned from that point, regardless of who runs the military, medical will always succeed and overrule everything, because it was a medical decision. You cannot remain in the army. And that's what it came down to, because all my PRs were fine. I had plenty of people saying, "Oh, let's get you down to the training school."
So they just looked at black and white on paper.
Yeah.
And just went, "Well, you can't be in the army if you don't have a hand."
Yep. Yeah. 3 fingers. And that's what I mean. Like, that's what I deal with. People don't understand. I'm renovating it. I'm renovating a house. I've got some mates that gave me a hand, but I've done a lot of labor myself, plastering, ripping water off walls, all with 3 fingers, using nail guns. I do everything. I just do it a different way. It might take me a bit longer, but no one in the army gave me the opportunity. So they took away my choice. They took away my control. Am I bitter and angry at them? I was for a long time, but someone has said, there's no need to be bitter and angry about it all the time, and keep doing it, but it will always be there. I'm not going to forget it. I still love the army. Would I serve again tomorrow? Yep. If World War III starts, would I go to be a trainer? Yep. But I will not forget how they hurt me, because I gave them literally my life. So yeah.
When you were still in defense, what was your vision for the future? Like, did you think, what was it?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a CSM, and it's funny because I always looked up to people like, what was his name? Barry Wade and things like that. He was a great sergeant. He's obviously passed. I had a great OC, Rob Sanders and that. And I said, I want to be the right-hand man. Yeah, I want to be the right-hand man. I want to say, hey, we've got the best squadron. We've got this. I didn't think I'd ever, after being injured, I didn't think I'd become an RSM because of my injuries, and I wouldn't be as competitive. But I said, that's it. I can just only try. So my goal is, after being wounded and at CTC, before I got that email read out to me, saying, there's no requirement for Sergeant Lydiard to be promoted or to attend Subject 1 Wireless course, and then a few months later get the discharge, I was gobsmacked. Because it took my choice control away. I just wanted to try to see how I go as the CSM of one of the squadrons or something like that, lead officially, 90 men with a crown on my shoulder. It wasn't about the title, but it was being in that position because, I loved my job. I loved being influencing and helping and coaching people to aspire. I wanted to make soldiers. I loved having soldiers that actually did their job, So I wanted to have that, and they took it away from me. So I think the CO that I had at the time, I think his name was Scott Tatnall. He's a great CO. He's really good, in the RSM, and they knew how much it hurt me, because I think I had done, I'm not quite sure the timeline, but I think I'd done the Rocknest swim, the 19.8. Then I came back. Then I was meant to go on sub 1. Like I said, came back. They said no, I went field. And then when I came back, a few months later, I had that med discharge. See you later. So yeah, look, identity is a huge thing, especially when you join at 17. I had my 18th birthday in the army. down at Kapuka. That's all I ever lived to be, and never thought that I was ever a number until I heard that email. And unfortunately, Scott's the one who read it out to me, and he knew how much it hurt. So yeah.
What I was going to say is how I was going to ask how long from the incident through to, if that's how you want to refer it to, I don't know how you want to refer to it as, but until the discharge, because I do remember I was at 3CR when, well, you were at 3CR, and I remember fucking looking at you like just being an absolute fucking weapon, like injuries and all, smashing everyone in PT, being fitter than everyone, swimming to fucking Maggie Island and doing all this. And there's me, like a fresh 20-year-old skinny little lad, just going, fuck, man, like my knee's sore and I'm complaining. My knee's sore and I'm complaining because I just came back from bush. And there you are swimming to fucking Maggie Island. And you're like, it's inspiring because you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to go bush next time because look at this motherfucker.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? You could have built so many great soldiers based on a guy just trying,
just
and
from being around. If like as a job just in the military, if you just join people for PT, like, come on, motherfuckers. And like that there is inspiring.
Well, that's what I mean. I used to run around with the sand bucket because I couldn't do push-ups. I was still getting bandages and all that stuff. And then they'd have the sand bucket blood and all that nonsense. But yeah.
That was I remember seeing that, and it just fucking blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck am I looking at?
It's funny though, because other countries have people with disabilities and, wounded veterans, wounded soldiers still in the army serving, no legs. And I get it. Potentially, we're concerned you're at risk because you're sight and you only got 3 fingers. But you know what? It's in 2023 now. We're going into 24. I'm still alive. I have never killed myself or killed another or harmed another person. Like what you based everything on is so unfounded. But to answer your question, like I was wounded in 2007, and then I think it was 2012. I got the notice. You got to move on. So yeah, 2012. I think I got the notice to move on roughly, and then that's when I had to make the choice to go to university and said to the Defence Force, will you pay my way? Or gave them the option to pay, and it was in a report, or I will go to the media because I had a letter from the Chief of the Army saying that we will always have you employed. So I thought I could play that card. So they paid my way through uni. So yeah, 5 years I was in the Army with disabilities, and I wasn't, when I discharged, so I got wounded in 07, and then obviously 08, I was probably still going through recovery, you could say. 09, I believe I was still in 3CR, and then from 09-10, I moved down to CTC. So I was at CTC for about 2 years, doing, pre-mission rehearsals and all that, doing all that type of thing. And then about 2012, mid-2012, I think, I got the notice, and then I started pursuing, I
want to talk a little bit about rehab. So like I've had multiple injuries in my career, from knee, spine, shoulder, my Achilles. Those were the most depressed times of my life, being injured, just because I felt the judgment from other soldiers.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
Oh,
that like
100%. Like I said, I had that soldier drive me to and from home, and he questioned, why was I going to work every day? Why don't you just live on your pension? One of the best things.
How did that make you feel though? Like, did that make you feel angry, like worthless, or
guilt? It made me question everything. If he's thinking that, who else is thinking that? Like, I joined to be a soldier, not to be just a drop beat. Like, why would you think that? How can you say that to me right now? Like, I was just stunned by it. What would you say? I go, no, I want to make something of myself again, mate. Like, seriously. You know what? One of the funny things is I was part of RTF 3. The commander over that time was Dave Wainwright. And then when the group came back in 08, 09, Dave obviously was still the CO. And because I was in the regiment headquarters, I said to him, I want to go back down to the squadron when he was back on actually, I think he was back on Rockall, or something like that. Anyway, he goes, look, you're still recovering from sight. I don't think you can go back. And I said, you need to let me try. You need to let me do it. And he goes, okay. And I was in the company headquarters. My sight, wasn't coming back, was still blurred. The guys had just come back from Afghanistan. That's right. And because I wanted to be there presenting for them. Anyway, I went down there. I was trying to do everything normal. I was obviously the admin sergeant, not ops sergeant, who went out, and ops sergeant at that time obviously went out and did all the planning and went and got all the equipment and got everything done, the more physical role. The admin sergeant was the person that did the roll calls and did all the administration, made sure everyone leaves. So I was the admin sergeant, so the other guys could do the physical stuff, and I did the more paper trail. Anyway, I went down. He let me go down there, and I lived to this. And even any client that I get, I say, you need to learn from failure. There's nothing wrong from learning with failure. I think it's a very important thing to learn. And what I learned is I went down there, I went to do the roll call, and I could not read the roll book. And I said, okay. I just said, all right, number off, got a number, they all numbered off, 3 rows, we've got 30. Yeah, cool. Walked back in and then sat there and tried to tick off the names, 30 names. And it wasn't the right way. And then I had to come up with another way of doing it. So I went out the next week, and then I just made the font bigger and then read off this massive list. But then it came to me going into the troops and checking the equipment. So in 1 week, I learned I could not do the admin sergeant role. And then I went back to Dave and said, can you please move me back? I've learnt my lesson. So, I was fortunate in the fact that I got to learn lessons the hard way, but I also was able to do my job to a different degree, because at that time, and, when they came back from Afghanistan, which would have been, sometime in 08, I was still going recovery, but at the same time I had to learn,
And how were the guys who came back from Afghan? They were the guys that you deployed with originally, but and how'd they treat you on arrival back in Australia? Like,
I think it was surreal for all of us. That's one of the things that really happened in my recovery really well. When I landed back into Australia and I was at the PA every week, I got flowers and chocolates for my wife, obviously, and there was something there from the guys. I even received a video from the guys where I felt obliged to send them a video back for every week. So I was there. That was 4 weeks in the PA roughly. And then even when at Christmas, my wife at the time got flowers and chocolates, and my kids got something or whatever, seafood. I think we got a seafood basket as well. But when the kids came back, when the men came back, I think they were just a bit surprised that I was out doing PT, because like I said, I went down there to do it for a week, and then I acknowledged I couldn't do it. But then they heard of what I had been doing. Not only was they overseas hearing that I was out running around with a bucket and things like that, not only did they hear that I was, obviously trying to get back to the troops, but when they came back and they saw it, and I think they were a bit overwhelmed or a bit surreal for them. And then when, I had to go back to the company regiment headquarters, and then I was running around doing my work with them, I think maybe they just felt proud. I know. I wouldn't be able to answer that, mate.
It's all right. Let's move on to something a bit more positive. What's the future like for you? What's happening? What are your goals and dreams? What's coming up? You've been mentioning that with your job now. I don't know what your job now is. I think it's an occupational therapist. Like, what are your goals and dreams? And what's coming up for the future for you?
Well, I guess it's always about making goals. I just moved down to Brisbane about 3 years ago. Unfortunately, things didn't work out with my last partner. But out of that relationship, I've got a daughter, and I have her 50-50. So everything is about my children and putting myself first. So it's about building, those relationships and having a firm community behind me. So I'm always trying to do something with my kids or within the community. I have been thinking about maybe writing about a book or doing podcasts or trying to do something where I can do more, because I do feel that sometimes veterans sell themselves short, and I want to try to reassure them. And like I was saying before, I do feel that there is a bad stigma to the veteran, although, I'm not saying that everyone has a bad stigma towards it, but it is guided by that media, with the suicide and things like that. But I want to be able to help veterans more. And You know, I see all these people out, other veterans out there with mental health, but once again, the people with the physical, you don't see many of them out talking. It's not that they don't want to talk. I think it's more the fact that, hey, well, people have mental health. It's got a greater challenge.
I think from speaking with a politician earlier, it's because the funding's for mental health.
Yeah.
There's like right now for the past couple of years, all the funding is going towards mental health because that's what society's talking about at the moment.
Yeah,
So all the other organizations are suffering a little bit.
Yeah. So I can definitely get that, but that's what I mean. I'm not quite sure where I will lead, you know, with my own goals and personal goals and towards, you know, how I'm going to become more of an advocate or more of a role model towards veterans or mental health or anything. I'd like to. I don't know where it's going to go, but you know, I want to get back into my triathlons or running or something because I've now gotten settled in Brisbane. When I first got to Brisbane, my PTSD was at an extreme high. I found it very hard to settle. Just in the last year, I've settled back into Brisbane now. I've got a beautiful partner. She's doing okay, so she might stay around. But I think, you know, right now it's, you know, I got my career too. So I work full time apparently, which is a strain because obviously there's a lot of triggers there. I'm looking at probably reducing it, but at the same time, I love my job. You know, I am an occupational therapist. I am a rehab consultant where I work with veterans and I work with CBA or Commonwealth Bank Australia, who else? FedEx, a lot of corporate companies, helping people either get better after physical injury or with illnesses, you know, and it's such a rewarding job. It's very tiring and emotional because every day you come home with someone else's dramas or, you know, challenges. And because I'm so invested in my own, I take theirs on as a goal and want to try to help them, which becomes very tiring for me. And that's why I don't think I can sustain it. But I guess the only real plan that I've got, to be honest, is retirement. Probably in 10 years, I'm going to travel Australia. But I want to get back to my health. I want to really get taught trim and terrific again. Keep being a good role model, and I'd love to try to do a bit more for veterans, really, because I do feel like I've disconnected myself from it, from my own thoughts and perceptions, how I feel that they look at me. But also, I just want to be probably helping them more.
Well, mate, you're an inspiration. Like I look at you as an inspiration. Like that patch to me is an inspiration. That's how I see it. That you're like, you can have a quick scroll through your Facebook and you can see how much of an inspiration you are and the joy you're finding in life, which to me is fucking amazing because I know people that are not finding any joy in life at the moment.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're finding it is absolutely amazing. So I wanted to ask,
it's funny, isn't it? I'll share something. I think I watched one of your podcasts where you said, just start yelling, and you just started yelling.
Yeah.
Was that you?
Started yelling?
Were you just yelling and just going, you're saying fuck or something?
Oh, yeah.
That was you?
Yeah.
There's no difference to life. You just got to go, fuck it. It doesn't matter if it's an angry word, whatever trigger it is for you. You do that, yell, and then you take the next step forward. And if you take one step forward and then you take two steps back and then you end up taking another, you'll eventually keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And, just by, yelling or whatever, getting that initial stress out or taking that initial step, it's only going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. People can look at my Facebook and people can look at, what I put on, LinkedIn and that. It is what I share with people. And it is generally the truth because I get a lot of enjoyment out of getting out, trying to better myself or trying to get my children to see who I am. But there's also a lot of what they don't see is a lot of anxiousness. There's a lot of, sometimes like I was talking about the Father's Day, a bit of hurt or whatever. But people don't need to see that. But what they do need to see is, hey, he's trying and everyone else is trying and life can be great,
Mm-hmm.
But, everyday people, not just veterans, everyone experiences that to some level and acknowledging that. And you know what? It's funny. If I could say one thing and I wanted everyone to take something away from this, I just want, veterans to realise we're stronger than what I think the media make us out to be. And I think we really need to take control of that again. And I think we as veterans, brothers and sisters, need to show them what we are and who we are. We need to define our conditions and not let them define us, and we take charge again. And
we're fucking leaders. every single veteran I know is strong and resilient at one stage of their
Yeah.
fucking life. And I know they're the strongest that I know.
Yeah.
Like personally, like I've been there and done with them, not everyone, obviously, but I've seen people want to give up and just push on and push on and push on. So that we know that they have the strength and the resilience and that. You just got to let them
Yeah.
find it again, give them that spark again.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, you fucking got that. You've got this,
Mm.
man. You fucking take this on. Like you can do it all. I've seen you do it. I've seen you do it before. Give them that confidence again. I think it's really important.
Yeah. And then the second thing I just want to get out of it would be the fact that I want people to be more open. If you see someone that's, with a disability, just say hello to them. Ask them how they lost a leg, how they lost an arm, or why is your arm in a sling? Don't be afraid. Let's all be human again. And if that means the veterans are taking the lead in this and starting showing pure empathy and pure, care, well, let's do it, because, you can see someone having a bad day if they're sitting there alone having a coffee, or, just saying, hey, can I have a coffee with you? Or do you want company? Or, let's try to help each other and be human again. I just feel that, it's a shame because people just stare, and staring's not good for anyone. And, if you are a veteran and you're the one that's having a coffee and you're feeling low, it's only a phone call you got to make, isn't it? Hey, I'm having a coffee. You don't want to come? We'll go down there by yourself. And when you're sitting down there, just reach out and talk to someone, So I think we all can help each other. But
and what's your piece of advice for those who are struggling in that moment and do want to reach out and talk to someone, but just pressing that send button is really fucking hard and they don't do it? And they're like, yeah.
This is a conversation, us just sitting here, and I don't have any statistics and that in front of me or anything like that. I'm talking based on, my lived experience and my professional experience. I'm just trying to think of the point I was trying to get back at, but what was the question again?
For the people that are sitting there, like completely depressed. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was saying, based on my lived experience and professional experience, the hardest thing about everything, everyone can say it's about, hey, just pick up the phone and make a phone call. But, and my children can vouch this, I stand to this by the day. The problem is, as soon as you pick up the call and you make the phone call, someone's not there. That makes the hole deeper. And you go, well, who am I going to call next? Or I'm bothering them. So the problem is you've got no one to call. So my thing is, if you're in that depressive state, hey, what do I do? You're putting it on social media, or, I've got no one to call. I actually do feel what you need to do is drive somewhere and see someone, physically get up, and potentially I've got a mate around the corner, I've got a friend or family around the corner. But don't be you don't want to make that phone call and someone not be there and go, oh, what do I do now? But if you get up and you're driving, you're thinking, you're distracting yourself, and you're driving to your friend's house. If he's not there, you sit there and you call then and go, hey, I'm at your house. Have we got time for a beer or a chat or whatever? Or you go to the Oasis, or you go somewhere to the local cafe and you have a coffee, because the thing is, like I said, the worst thing about the phone call is you make the phone call and the person doesn't pick up, and it makes you, and I've been there, it makes you feel worse, and then you keep stewing over. But if you're driving, potentially you're distracted, or if you've gone for a walk around the block to see someone, at least you're making that physical effort, and you've got the endorphins and all the serotonins and that going as well. But it is about reaching out, and it's about how best to reach out for you, I guess. So if you're down, you're low, you don't know what to do, work out what the best way for you to reach out, have those, those positive influences, those people around you. If that means you can physically see them, go around and do that, because the sight, the touching of someone else is better than a phone call. I always encourage that more over a phone call. But if you have to, there's a second choice is a phone call or calling someone, mother, father, whatever it's going to be. Your family's always there for you, son and daughter. But, at the end of the day, when you hang that phone call up, once again, they're not going to be there compared to you being at someone's house. You got a bit more comfort. Someone got to touch your leg. It doesn't matter. Brothers hug. I haven't got too many sisters as such, but I know the brothers I got and I see, and we always hug each other. So yeah.
Thanks, mate. And just want to ask how does your how do I word this? Like life look these days. Did you having more good days than bad days? Did you always have more good days than bad days? Was there a change? Was there a time where there was more bad than good? And then when did that start merging together and changing? Like, and was that a mindset thing that was changed from more bad to good? Was it just the general time with recovery? Was it like, was there a noticeable time in your life where where everything did change and then
I
change
don't
for the
think.
better?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. Your good days and your bad days, and you someone go, oh God, I've had a bad day today. But there's different reasons: everyday pressure, society,
Mhm.
work, the bad days. But generally, I can't do that anymore. I can't sit there and go, oh, this is a bad day. I'm now the person that looks at the glass full. I'm now the person go, oh, my kids are home. As soon as you start changing your mindset, your life just gets so much better, and you seem to be embracing gratitude for what you have. So when I do have a bad day, I actually come home and go, God, I'm glad I'm out of work. It could be a bad day, but I know I'm grateful for going home to my kids. So yes, I've had those days, but I can't reflect on them anymore. I can't give you that answer because to me, it means nothing now because my days are good days.
That is
So,
the best answer you could give, because it's something I truly believe in. It's only something I've learned this year is gratitude and how powerful fucking gratitude is. Like gratitude, if you can be grateful for something, at the same time you can't be angry at it, you can't be sad at it, you're grateful for it. And I do believe, like you, there's an equal amount of good and bad in absolutely every situation and everything. And we should focus, which a lot of people focus on the negative side to situations and experiences, but if they actually spent the time and looked at the good side to it, that and it might take a while to find it. It could take years to find the balance out of the good and bad, but it's there because every situation is neutral. It's not. It's the perspective that changes that makes it good or bad.
It's funny. To happiness, there's like 6 elements, and 2 of the elements is positive influences and community engagement. And that's what I mean. You look at why you have ECO, Oasis, and you have all these other ECO groups. The reason they have it is because it helps people get out, but there's such an emphasis, or there's such a value in you helping others, and you get something back. You get not only you're grateful for what you get and what you give to others, but you get something back from it. So the happiness element and the 6 parts to it, the positive influences you engage in and getting into the community, and the other one being the community. It is about the gratitude, but it's about you realizing there was an end and you achieved that. You had a goal and you got that done. So I 100% agree, mate. Like gratitude is one of the biggest thing. Autonomy, we need to be building on that. But yeah, you're right.
So thank you for spending a couple of hours with me today. Thank you for letting me ask you questions. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your experience and even letting your son jump on. It was truly amazing. You're still an inspiration.
Yeah,
keep
thanks,
doing
mate.
you, man. Keep doing you. Absolutely love it. Thank you.
All right, will do. All right,
Thanks,
talk
brother.
soon, man.
See ya.
Bye.